where we win right here, not on the field.
But where we want to be at the end of the season starts with our mentality and our attention to detail today.
When they leave Penn State, a person should be able to look at them and say, that's a guy that went through that program. He's special.
On this episode of the Unrivaled podcast, we visit with Rece Davis, host of ESPN's College GameDay as the premier pregame show, returns to Happy Valley for the 5th consecutive year. Rece, Penn State is the only school to host GameDay every year since 2017. What does that say about this program and its fan base?
That they always support the show. Everyone knows that they support the team, but we've had some of the great scenes for College GameDay during my now 7 years on the show of any place that we've been. I think of Corso crowd surfing. I think of the year when they were working on Old Main and we had to go to another area and there was a hill. I don't know the name. I can't recall off the top of my head the name of the other place where we went, but there was a hill and dorms behind us. And there was just a sea of humanity back there. People fired up and ready for the game and excited to showcase the pride in the Penn State program through our show. And we think it's one of the great settings in college football. We always look at the crowd as being the fifth or sixth, if we're five wide up on the desk, sixth member of our on-air group. They kind of provide the backdrop, the atmosphere, the soundtrack, if you will, of the show. And Penn State has and its fans have really come through on that for all of my time on College GameDay.
2019, the show was over at the Hub. This year, it returns back returns back to Old Main, where it's a familiar setting. You talk about the crowd and Corso crowd surfing, and one of the questions that you've gotten pretty much all year is, how does Corso being back on set really change the energy?
It's so great to have him back. Now, the group that worked with Lee last year at his house and created all of those awesome vignettes and backgrounds, they were so talented and creative. But to have him back out there and to rev up the crowd before it starts with his little helmet act, which he does every week, and I love watching every week. He'll, like Saturday morning, you guys have probably seen it before. He'll hold up the Penn State helmet and everyone will yell, and then he'll put it down, lower it, and he'll raise the Auburn helmet and they'll boo, and he'll pick up their rhythm. They'll go faster and faster. And then finally, regardless of who he's going to pick for the game, before the show starts, he'll then spike the Auburn helmet and kiss the Penn State helmet. And no matter how many times people see it, people go wild. And it's awesome. And, just having him back, having that headgear moment being right there beside us. The back and forth he had with Ashton Kutcher last week was a lot of fun. So, it's just tremendous to have him back on site and being part of the show. He's such a, he's a legendary figure in the sport. It's almost as if that he is the one who signals the start of the college football Saturday when he puts on the headgear.
Now, last year when he was at his house down in Florida, was that a surprise for you guys each week with what the background was going to look like?
Yes. Yeah. There was a team of producers led by a man called Patrick Abrahams, who is a really, really talented guy, and another producer called Fu Takimi, who they were really, really instrumental in coming up with those surprises. And we, every Saturday morning when the shot would come up, we'd go, look at that. Oh, look at that over there. And it was really a tremendous job. LC jokes about how his neighbors might have gotten a little tired of it, especially the week that Patrick and Fu came up with an idea to put a giant elephant in his yard for an Alabama pick, like a fake elephant. One year, before I won't delve into too many Corso stories and hijack your podcast, but one year it might have been my first show on GameDay. We were in Fort Worth. I'm pretty sure this was the year for Alabama, Wisconsin, and he was going to pick Alabama, and he had it lined up to have a live elephant coming. I think he was going to ride maybe the live elephant, and then I think there were some powers that be that got involved and they had to look improvise and adapt and do something different. But he sort of got the elephant in his house last year, although it was not actually a live elephant, but it was a giant elephant in his yard.
Now, you mentioned it off the top about Corso crowd surfing here a few years back, and you take tremendous pride in that scene set to start each show. What makes it challenging for you specifically, having come back to Penn State 5 consecutive years now, to construct a creative open?
You don't want to go back to the same well every time, but you also don't want to ignore the staples. There's a thing in the music and radio industry that you play the hits, right? So if there's something that's really important to a crowd, or a moment that will get them going, or a saying, or a "We Want the Lion," or "Zombie Nation," which we used, or "We Are Penn State," if the crowd enjoys that, I'm not so boneheaded to sit there and think that everybody's sitting there going, "He used that one in 2018." The script will be different because the week's different. But if there's part of it that is sort of a staple of the culture, of the football culture of a school, then we're gonna tap into that. But we'd like to do everything we can to keep it fresh. You don't want to, you don't want to crowd surf year after year after year. If not for, and we've all are dealing with the enhanced COVID protocols now and trying to stay safe. The one thing that I wanted to do was, the first time we got back on campus, and this week would have even been better for it, I wanted to do a scene set where, in this case, that I would start at the back of the crowd at Old Main, and they would just crowd surf me right back up to the set. That's kind of how I wanted to do the scene set the first time we were back on campus, and maybe at some point we'll get to a point where everyone can relax the protocols, and I'll get to do that. But just sort of as a reminder of how important it is to be with the fans and with the crowd, and what they mean to the show and to the sport as a whole.
That would be something. That'd be really cool. So with that said then, without giving too much away, and obviously you don't want to give away your entire scene set, and I think it was a few years back you said, some weeks it comes to me on Sunday, sometimes it doesn't come to me till about an hour before the show. So without giving anything away, what can we expect with this Saturday scene set?
And I'm not trying to be coy. I would say under construction right now. it's where we are with that. So we'll look at it. Like last week, we improvised a little bit because the original idea was to have something out of the field of dreams, and for whatever reason that didn't work to actually go there. There's some extenuating circumstances, but our director brought like rows of corn, and then had fans and side of the cyclone run out of it. So you can improvise at different times to kind of create the right thing you want. But we're still under construction for this week.
Love it. Little tease there for the Penn State fans that will be in attendance for College Game Day, which will get underway at 9 a.m. Eastern time from the Old Main location. Now, shifting our attention to the actual matchup between Penn State and Auburn. Rece, you've said before that the Penn State whiteout has that eerie feeling to it with the low constructed lights, and it's dark and you can't really see everybody up above. But what are you expecting this Saturday when Penn State takes on Auburn?
I expect a game not terribly dissimilar from the Wisconsin game, maybe not quite as low scoring, but I expect a tough physical game. And it's really interesting, I think, in this game. You hate to run right to the quarterbacks, but in this particular case, for all the numbers that Sean Clifford has put up, there has been a need to perform at a high level, on a stage like this. And for Auburn, Bo Nix is much the same way. He has compiled a lot of numbers. He's had some really good moments, but he has been like a different quarterback, and not in a good way for Auburn, away from Jordan-Hare Stadium. He's thrown 20 touchdowns and 1 interception at Jordan-Hare. In true road games, he's thrown 9 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. His completion percentage is, down more than 10 points in road games. His QBR is off by 30 points, and it's well below average in road games. And it's something, that he says that he's addressed. So I really think that the quarterback not making a mistake or not losing his composure and sort of letting the offense unravel will be a big key. And I think that with Auburn having a new coaching staff, the one that I respect greatly, by the way, I've known Brian Harsin since he was the offensive coordinator at Boise State, calling his games, his weeknight games, way back in the day. But it's new, and it's the first time on the road with with Bo Nix and with Mike Bobo as offensive coordinator. You go in against a group that is not only very talented, but they're also connected and familiar with each other, and they know the setting. I don't think, as great as the setting is, I don't think Auburn's going to be terribly bothered by the setting itself. Now, it can make communication difficult. It can give Penn State a jolt of energy and momentum. But, Auburn hasn't been in a more difficult situation than it will be in from an atmosphere standpoint Saturday night. But this will be as difficult as any they would encounter in the SEC.
You mentioned Sean Clifford in the quarterback position, and you're familiar with Mike Yurcich and being the first-year offensive coordinator for Penn State University. Through 2 games, how have you seen the OC and Mike Yurcich accommodate towards Sean Clifford's game and make him feel comfortable out there with what they're running?
Well, I think that's what he does best, and it's something that he's done really throughout his career, no matter where he's been. And I think, that you still want more, from Sean. I think, you kind of, you'd like a little bit better on third down. But then again, it's early, and you played Wisconsin, and they were able to do a better job of taking care of the ball than Wisconsin did, and won the game. And I think even last week against Ball State, that's not, that was a game that on Saturday morning on GameDay we said, hey, Penn State should win, but you're talking about a team that, MAC champions won 8 in a row. And so, they need to be sharp enough. And so I think that, I don't have Sean's stats last week in front of me, but I know that they put, 44 up, and the segments of the game that I watched, and I watched all of the Wisconsin game, the segments of the Ball State game that I watched, it looks like that they're getting more and more comfortable. And I think that that's going to continue to improve as the season goes along, because I think it was a really smart move that James made. Nothing against Kirk Chiraka. He certainly had success, but I think this is a good move for a quarterback. I think that Yurcich will do what fits Sean rather than trying to get him to fit into his predetermined system.
Flip sides of the football towards Penn State's defense, and they found success in that first game against Wisconsin. They were unreal, forced a number of turnovers, specifically in the red zone. What's impressed you about Brent Pry's defense to this point?
I think just that, and losing the guys that they lost a year ago, some difference maker kind of guys, and still being able to stand up there and force turnovers in clutch situations, be in really, really difficult circumstances in that Wisconsin game, really looking like that you're hanging on the edge, and then being able to come up and make a play. They've got some veteran guys up there. Muster's played a lot, and he's been around a long time. Obviously, Keita's a great player. So they've got leaders there, and I think what they've been able to do is take that and also find difference makers as well. So I'm really impressed with their defense, and I think that that's one of the reasons that I'm expecting a relatively low scoring game on Saturday night.
You expect a relatively low-scoring game. So with that said, the Nittany Lions win the 2021 Penn State whiteout if what?
If they win the turnover battle and get, I will say, if they can get 3 explosive plays out of Dotson. It's pretty specific. But in this game, I think you're going to need – look, I'm not going to lie. I don't know how good Auburn's defense is right now. They had some guys transfer out. Newkirk's defensive lineman is now at Florida. They kept Bryant at UCF. I'm not sure how good their defense is, so I may look foolish calling for a low-scoring game. because now they've got elite linebackers. I mean, especially Zero Papo. He is. I mean, all Penn State fans that appreciate great linebacking will like watching him. Well, maybe they'll like watching him in other games. They might not like watching him Saturday night. But I still get the feeling that they will need chunk plays. And if Clifford can be sharp, hit some of those, you've got one of the best receivers in college football out there to make those. I think that I think that would be the thing. You got to take care of the ball, win the turnover battle, get some explosive plays, and sort of maybe get Bo Nix rattled. Which even though I think he's a good player, I do think that he has shown the propensity at times in his career to get a little wound up and maybe try to take it all on himself and do it himself. And sometimes it has led to mistakes.
Rece, appreciate your time. We'll see you Saturday.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you.